Welcome to Beneath Your Beautiful, where guests share stories of adversity and perseverance, which inspire, encourage, and challenge us. We embrace these tough conversations, intimately exploring our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
My name is Harry J. Turner. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a psychotherapist, and now in a second business called the School of Outliers, I am a life coach. In my private practice, I am a psychotherapist. I say psychotherapist because I look at the totality of a person's life. So when we talk about adverse childhood experiences and whatnot, that's my realm. I believe in dealing with the more deeper subconscious algorithms. And so it's Carl Jung for me. I'm more Jungian. And until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So I want to help people get freed from those algorithms. But then I noticed over time, no matter what background my clients came from as a therapist, I'm talking about poor, affluent, mainly middle class, Black, white, Asian, Latino, it didn't matter. We all had the same fears. It just manifested differently depending on our physical circumstances. And so that's when I said, let me take this, because it also helped me as a therapist over the years. I was a therapist in a multi-level security prison for the first 4 years of my work as a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a certified clinical trauma professional. I'm a heart-centered hypnotherapist. I'm a certified integrative mental health professional. I know I have a few more cognitive behavior group therapists. That's on the clinical side. On the coaching side, because now I'm my second business, School of Outliers, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. On that side, I'm at least a spiritual life coach, but I'm also a purpose life coach, life story life coach, and also a certified life purpose facilitator. If y'all like letters and stuff like that, just tossing that out there. But those letters are really for everybody else. I don't attach myself to a title. Now, as I was going through my practice though, and I noticed that we all, even from the prison, I noticed that those old sages were always right, that we are all on the same page. We all have the same fears. We all struggle with the same things. We just think that things are different because we experience it from our subjective human experience. And so I wanted to bring this to a larger crowd because I deal with people one-on-one. And I know I have a unique perspective. I've always had a unique perspective on things. And so I moved into the social influencing space. And when I got in that space, I realized that a lot of people speak mental health and social and about things regarding mental wellness. And a lot of them have never stepped foot in the therapy office or know anything about mental health.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, therapists don't really do this. And that gave me more drive to want to step out there and just build something, a package where I could help people become liberated, because I believe that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And so we are all in this together, you know.
What's the common fear?
The fear is not enoughness. It's unworthiness.
Right.
It's always that. My focus is in helping people get free. Both modes have their purpose.
I, of course, totally felt unworthy my entire life until one day I I deemed myself worthy. Liz Gilbert had a podcast, and this girl was saying she wanted to be an artist, but she wasn't getting into the art school she wanted. And Liz Gilbert told her, you don't need an art school or somebody else to tell you you're an artist. You just are. She said, you make your own diploma. And I actually designed a diploma for myself, and I wrote worthy. And therefore I gave myself the diploma to be worthy. That sparked that idea.
Bless you for that.
But for so many years, I didn't feel worthy, and then realized I had the power. Is that what you're teaching people, that you don't get it from an outside source?
Yes, it's always the internal world that dictates the external world. We don't see things as they are, but as we are. And so the I that you're talking about is that you move from small I, your subjective human experience, to large I. You are the awareness behind the experience. And when you move to that awareness, you can realize that you can embody any I amness that you choose. And so then you say, I am an artist, you see, because after we choose that I amness, then an experience happens behind that. But it's just that simple. You choose a new I amness. We're here to have an experience. That's the joy of being a human being. And the sweet ain't sweet without the bitter. So we've come here to understand who we are, not only based off of the truth, the true affirmative spaces that let us know who we are, our talents, our gifts, and whatnot, but also these painful experiences that represent that big S word, shame, which represents who we are not. And how do you know that's not you? Regardless of how much you behaved in that space or what you're ashamed of in that space, it's not you because it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah.
Anything that represents your truth makes you feel good. Your talent, your passion, all of those things, that's work, but it makes you feel good. That's the signal. That's the sign that you are on the right path.
Yes. That you can do something that you're not proud of, but that's not who you are.
No.
Yeah, I love that. I've just started a magazine to go along with this podcast where I share, there's stories as well, but there's pictures of little kids playing in the sprinklers as well as homeless people. The point is the whole breadth of life is beautiful. And you're saying, I think, that we go through all of it. We have to have all of it and not to shy away from those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Not to shy away, but to have a full human experience, because that's what we've come here for. And we don't realize that in these moments, we give in to the illusion of whatever I amness we choose, such as I am depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And we give way and we say, and we truly embrace and totally believe that what happens is that continues to create the narrative, no matter what stage you are in life, it continues to color the lens. And so we're not that. This is just the experience. We must move back to that space of understanding that you're a creator and that you can choose differently. The life story that you've experienced, because we're all born tabula rasa. So we come into this alien planet and we absorb everything. We have the capacity and ability to absorb everything. And so for the first 7 years of existence, we're in the most hypnotic state that we're in as children. And that's when these deep algorithms get written into our psychological software. The issue is that just like a computer and just like having these smartphones, the software being the mind, the brain being the hardware, the software being the mind, it was designed to be constantly upgraded. Mm-hmm. The mind was designed magnificently to evolve. We are higher sentient beings. By definition, we were built to evolve. But what happens when we tell ourselves these life stories? And then because of our perception that is built as a result of taking feedback and us trying to understand who we are in this world and us embodying a false self-identity, we end up believing this original story, not realizing that we are not our story. That's not who we are. That just came here to help us, assist us in becoming who we always were, a return to love.
Right. Even if I had not said it was my story, I think now that I didn't feel worthy. I was sexually abused at 7 and my mother didn't do anything, didn't act on it. And so that kind of left me with a sense of unworthiness. But also, I just didn't think I mattered. In the general scheme of things, other people were important, but I wasn't. Now I believe that everybody's important. But if you don't believe it, how do you get somebody to believe it?
Ask that again. If you don't believe, what is the it?
If I didn't believe I was worthy or I was important because I'm just me, right now I'm so grateful to be alive that, of course, I have talents to bring the world, even if I am just me. Now I know that. But how would you convince me 10 years ago? I guess the question is, how do you help people find their worthiness when it's already in them and they just don't believe you?
That's why I've designed, and this is something I've always done, even in therapy, I freestyle. So life coaching was just, par for the course. But that's why I've designed what I've called the lit effect. The lit effect is a 5-step framework, and this will help me to explain. The first stage is acceptance. We accept because we can't change what we don't accept. And until we accept that which we resist, which is our pain and this shame and whatever other dark shadows we're trying to run from, it will continue to persist. Whatever we resist persists.
Yes.
And so acceptance comes first. So we learn really what acceptance, and not just the surface level colloquial understanding of acceptance, because a lot of people think acceptance is acquiescence. That's not synonymous. No, acceptance is a virtue. It's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't know that and you don't understand that formula, then you're not practicing skillfully. And a life of authenticity is a life of skillfully practicing living through your values. So stage one is acceptance. We can't change what we don't accept. And then when you accept, what you get is this added byproduct of peace. That peace then ushers in what you didn't have before you accepted, which was clarity. You didn't know where to go, what direction to go to, but there's always an internal compass in there. No teacher can teach you that except that which is already half asleep in the dawning of your being. That's from my favorite author, Khalil Gibran. And so you get that clarity. So that's step number 2, clarity.
Mm-hmm.
When we move from clarity, the next step is reconditioning. Because once we get clear on what direction we're going in, now we need to do some reconditioning around what it is that we do. We need to move from the activities that involve the life story of the false self and now design the practice of living in one authentic self, which is going to be foreign and awkward until you do it, because you're building scientifically. What you're doing is building new neural pathways. Mm-hmm. And so your mind will always choose the path of least resistance. So until these intentional practices then become a habit and build neural pathways that are interstate bridges like these old pathways, you will have to continue to resist going back to those old defaults. But eventually it becomes a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And when you move it from reconditioning, then you can move into the envisioning, because the vision that you had for yourself in the past was limited. It was limited because default, coming into this human embodiment, we forget who we are and how great we are. We forget that we are I amness, that we're the I behind that. And so when it comes down to envisioning, we have limiting beliefs that then limit the visions that we have for ourselves. We don't know enough about ourselves to form a true adequate vision of our purpose and what that looks like, and the space that gives us the most fulfillment and joy and happiness. Mm-hmm. We don't know. It takes time to get to know that, And so now we've gotten out of the old algorithm, this old, outdated, antiquated software. And now we move towards this newer, updated version software. You updated your algorithm, and now you can truly choose. And that's the last stage. So the 5-stage process is acceptance, clarity, reconditioning, envisioning, and then choosing. That's my process of awakening. But what I'll say is, I'm no more than a guide. A teacher can't teach you anything except that which is already half asleep in you. And a true teacher doesn't tell you that I have the path to God, that I have the way. No, a true teacher will tell you, seek not to find the path to God, but rather seek to find God on your path. You've been on your path the entire time.
Have you always felt worthy? And if you haven't, when did it change for you?
Yes, I felt unworthy, immensely unworthy, because I had different insights growing up. And these things, they might sound, I don't know, either I sound very bizarre to your listeners, or I sound really cool to them. And so that bizarreness, I didn't understand that as a child. A lot of what I have now and know now, it's been insights that I was given as a child. Mm. And I would say these things, and either my peers would either just look at me like, dude, we asked you to play it and you started quoting Shakespeare. What the hell is going on here? You know what I mean? And adults would freak the hell out, because it's like, how is this child saying these things as if he's 70 years old, But now that I'm older, my voice is deeper and I have a few gray hairs. People actually listen to me
you
now.
Can quote Shakespeare without any weird looks.
Exactly. So that brought up a lot of shame. And of course, false self anxiety, having catatonic anxiety and just feeling this experience of shame, and then living out that story of I am shame, and in that space, because that's what you become. You become a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yes.
At some point, like my grandmother said, some people don't look up until they're flat on their backs. That looks differently for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I had enough. And so I began to learn more about myself. When you ask the question, black or white, do you believe you are worthy or not? It's not as black and white for me. For me, we're divided. If you understand internal family systems, they work under the framework of we are divided into parts, like an internal family, just like an external family. And these are like sub personalities. So what I say early on in life is that most of these parts carry the energy of unworthiness. Now, where I am now, few of these parts carry the energy of unworthiness, but there's still more work to be done.
Yes. I really love that because I keep saying that I feel really at peace with where I am, but also there's more work to be done. And those two are simultaneously true.
Mm-hmm.
I can be both. I can feel good about where I'm at and also know that I'm so not done. I did have a coach recently that worked on internal family systems, and she helped me so much. Understanding that the part of me that was judging me was trying to keep me safe, which was a real eye opener. And I'm no longer judging the judger inside me. I'm thankful to her for trying to keep me safe. And so this is a really nice relationship now. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. That's what I love about internal family systems. It's a non-pathological way of treating a person, which I believe to be a more evolved way of treatment, because everything that we do in every profession, every practice, we have to raise the vibration. It has to resonate more with the energies of love. And so even though I'm a therapist, still licensed therapist, still have clients, and I know that all of these disorders are called pathologies. And so we look for what's pathological in a person. So all of us carry anxiety to a certain extent, but does it get to the point of being pathological to the person? I love to look at it from a completely different perspective, more of the internal family systems perspective, where no part is unworthy. It's just you must reconnect with these parts, because shadow work or introspective work or doing the real insight, digging down deep, it's about a return to love. And so it's about forming a relationship and becoming emotionally intimate with yourself again, hearing yourself again, becoming one with yourself again.
Did you have therapists as a younger person? Were you in therapy?
Oh, I was in therapy, yes, as an adult for many years. And I stopped more recently. And actually, I'm probably going to either go back to my old therapist or find another therapist real soon, because all the best therapists go to therapists. You can lose all of your limbs and still live a long life. You lose your mind, there is no more you.
Right.
And so mental wellness is every bit as important as physical wellness. So it's important that I be doing something. Right now, what's been getting me over, though, is a lot of the trainings I've been digging into, and really just a lot of the meditations that I've been recording. I have a free subscription on my website for meditations.
Oh, okay. I'll include the link in the show notes. Well, you have the voice for it, so that's good you're doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. You said earlier your passion for this show is
helping people rise above what we've been through.
What we've been through.
That we don't have to live in the muck of it. That we don't have to be a victim of it.
That we don't have to be a victim of it. Yes. And so in that space, we could talk about that the journey would be to form a relationship with the part of you that identifies as a victim.
Yeah.
And letting that part, the burden that part carry, because those are the parts that carry the heaviest burdens, the parts that we exile, that we exclude from having a seat at the table.
Right.
You look like you want to say something, Gwen?
Oh, well, that reminds me that I'm 55 in a week, and I didn't talk about my childhood sexual abuse until I was 52. And because I was not going to be a victim of that, I didn't want to be a victim of my childhood or of the past, which is so funny to me now because talking about it freed me from it. But like you're saying, they were in exile. I had exiled that part of me that wasn't allowed to talk about it, that it was still carrying all the shame from the experience. And so I really appreciate what you're saying.
And that shame, what maintained that shame was an algorithm.
Explain the algorithm.
As we move through life, we develop a framework for how to operate our mind, perceiving and judging, how to interpret the world, and then deciding how to respond to the world. And based off of this feeling that we are separate, we all having our own subjective human experience, what happens is we make a judgment on who we are based on our experiences from the external world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when we're still operating under the limitations of effect, where you are essentially in effect to your environment. You have no free will. You have no ability to even influence your environment. It influences you. It does something and you react.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all the limiting beliefs come at, because you'll hear a lot of excuses in this space too. And I mean that in a neutral sense, because I don't judge anyone. There's no judgment here. But the excuses are no more than links to limiting beliefs when you follow out the excuse, because the excuse is related usually to this earlier story they told themselves about who they are.
Right.
So a person has said, I don't like people. And so grew up saying, I don't like people, when in reality, it was a projection that they were afraid of people.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, I don't like people. And so now as an adult, this shyness, you're struggling to overcome it. They get stuck because they say, well, I just never liked people. And that's the life story they lived out, when in reality, that in of itself is a lie that they told themselves because they felt safer living in that lie instead of embracing this truth. Freedom exists on the other side of our fears, but our fears scare the hell out of us.
Right.
Yeah,
I do.
And so it's leaning into that discomfort that eventually becomes our liberation. Sailboats are safest at the harbor, but they were never built to remain docked. And it's that risk, especially if you combine that with unworthiness. We don't think that we're worth the risk. So we don't like to take big chances on ourselves. We'll take chances on other people, but on us,
we're so hard on ourselves and yet easy on others. Like, that person did something terrible, but I'll forgive them, but I cannot forgive myself. And I don't understand that, but I see that happens all the time. It almost feels like they're holding themselves to a higher standard, just that they're not giving themselves the grace that they give others.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's the unworthy parts seeking out the cognitive distortion of perfectionism, to not accept that we were designed imperfect because we were designed to evolve.
Okay.
But we are perfect in perfection. And so it's this illusion that we must be perfect, and we're responding to that. Perfection is no more than this belief that you got to change something about you in order to belong. And so if I'm not perfect, then I don't belong. And if I don't belong, then I feel unworthy, because anybody who's of worth have somebody. Some people belong somewhere, but I have no purpose. And so then you move into those I am states, those lower frequency I am states. I am unworthy. I am alone. I am lonely. I am unworthy of connection. These things. I am unworthy of forgiveness.
Yeah.
I am my shame. That's a life story. That's an algorithm. So at some point, when you lean into your discomfort, what that does is break the broken record that continues to play, creating the same familiar experiences from the same familiar energy types, not people, because you could switch out players, but you're still dealing with the same energy. So that's why you go through the same thing again and again and again. It comes down to connections and relationships, because it's an energy that you must resolve.
I think you just put the light bulb on for me. I keep saying that I have found the way to self-love. And my idea is I was kind to myself, and that doesn't resonate with everybody, but I truly was kind to myself. I am so kind. I'm like, oh, good job all the time. Good try. Like a little kid. And now I see that you're saying it's because I've created a new vibration. Because why did it work for me? When all the years I hated myself or was mean to myself, or I needed to lose weight to be worthy of anything, now I don't feel that way. Is that what you're saying, is that I actually created a new energy around it?
You raised your awareness. You allowed your awareness to expand, and now you see new possibilities. And so you affirm a new reality. That's why affirmations, though simple, is one of the most transformational things you can employ, because wherever attention goes, energy flows, and everything is made up of energy. And so when you affirm and you believe in your heart, as you affirm, you're putting your awareness there. And the longer you keep your awareness there, the more energy builds there. And eventually, this also is how manifestation occurs, because when you look at your vision and you continue to react intentionally towards your vision, intentionality reflects relationship, because I'm not going to intentionally respond to something that's not real for me. Mm-hmm. So even though it may not be physically present, I am still giving it my awareness because it is worthy of my attention. I'm saying to life, it is significant, because literally the definition of significance is to be worthy of attention. So now I told life what my choice is, and now I need but continue to intentionally respond by staring and doing whatever I need to do towards it until it becomes so dense with energy that it collapses from the quantum field into the physical realm. And that's how everything happens.
What you're saying makes it make sense. Instead of just do what I say, you have actual reasons for doing what I say. I need both of us to have this conversation with somebody.
It's just a matter of just believing, the power of belief, the placebo effect. The placebo had the name and effect because it kept happening. They expected it to happen, that if you gave a control group and told them that was a medication that would help, they didn't expect it would actually help. If they had a sugar pill, that they would respond the same way, sometimes even better than people that were actually given a medication. But that's the power of belief.
I see.
We continue to unfold like the lotus and understand the power of our mind, the power of awareness. And so when you truly believe, that's when it begins to happen. When you believe that you're not your story.
Yes.
And so you can stop staring at the crime scene because there's nothing there for you to figure out. Just accept that it occurred first.
Yeah.
Accept that you don't know what direction to go into right now, but you surrender. You surrender to what is. You allow it to be. And then you move into a space of non-judgment. And then that's eventually when this click is going to happen and that peace is going to come in. And after that peace comes clarity. And then you're going to know what to do after that.
Right. I love what is, whether it was fair or not, whatever those words are, maybe wasn't good that it happened, but it happened. And now what? Now what? It's no sense living there, but it shouldn't have happened. Just no point to that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, compassion worked.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're saying that that's because it's real energy and it's literally a vibe.
Mm-hmm. Affirmations is not saying something positive. To affirm is to move from the negative, fear-based fight or flight state where all you think about is what you don't want. Yeah. Because that's the hunter and gatherer mind. We woke up in the morning and said, I don't want to starve to death today. I hope I find food. I don't want to die today. I hope I don't get my head bitten off by a bird or a dinosaur or whatever the hell was out there. It was always about survival. Yeah. And so we stayed in that state, I believe, for 400 million years. And so being in that state, our default typically is that fight or flight state of don't wants. We're not living in the affirmative in that space.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
It's the state which you do want or do desire. I say desire because when you define want implies lack, and you lack nothing. You have everything you need, just like the acorn. When I ask a client, okay, well, what do you want as your treatment goals? Well, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want them to treat me like this anymore. I don't want to have to struggle about this anymore. I don't want to wake up thinking this anymore. Okay, I hear that, but you've not told me one thing that you do want. And so I have not one goal yet. Mm-hmm. Those are not goals. You are telling me your fears. You are telling me your anxieties about the future. That's not telling me what you do want. And the mind doesn't know what to do when we don't tell it what to do. And so when we say, I don't want to do a thing, it removes the word not. And then tells it, it gives it something to do. And so it usually places the negative into the affirmative. And we usually replay that. So if I say I don't want to smoke anymore, that actually would do more to make you want to smoke and crave more, because you can't do a not thing. We create all of the time. So you can't not create or create a not thing.
You have given me so many light bulbs today. That's awesome.
So instead of, I don't want this person in my life, You wake up every day and say, I choose healthy relationships that reflect my highest authentic self.
Right.
I choose compassionate relationships. I choose loving relationships. Now, if you can't believe that, because you always have choice.
Right.
If you can't believe that, then I'm going to have to refer you to a therapist. The longest distance any of us will ever take is that distance, that journey from our head to heart. And so you return home, you reintegrate it. And the more parts of us that we welcome back home, the more parts of us that we welcome back at and give a seat at the table, the more empowered we become. And so then our consciousness expands because now we're listening to them too. Before they would just hijack stuff because they sat in the shadows yelling at us anytime something scared it and represented our biggest insecurities, our don't wants. But when you give it a seat at the table and you become emotionally intimate and you let it know that, no, you got its back. It understands the memories. You see the memories that it's holding. You see the beliefs that it made based off of these memories, the conclusions that this part drew about itself and how to decide how to behave based off of this memory, these traumatic memories. And you say, yes, I'm sorry that that happened to you, but you don't have to worry about it anymore. I got you. I got you. And you give it a seat back at the table and watch how much more inspiration it will come when you add these little voices back to your table. It's all about reintegration, returning back to love.
I really love that. And I've experienced it. So I know you're right. And I hope if anybody's struggling that they find somebody who can help them with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're really helping me because I feel all the feelings, but I don't know the reasons. And now you're filling in why. So I appreciate that so much.
Yes, the lit effect is about living in truth. LIT. It's lit. Okay. That acronym represents living in truth because time and time again, if you look at who has the highest rates of happiness, everybody's pursuing happiness, not realizing that happiness is a practice. It's not a destination to be reached, it's the way we travel.
Right.
And so when you look at who surveys the highest scores of happiness, it's always those who are living the most authentic life. And a life of authenticity is a life of skillfully practicing living in your values, which is why my personal mission statement is to assist others in developing the audacity or the boldness to live unapologetically authentic. Because the more of us that I get resonating on that frequency, it's personal for me. I'm invested in this. The more of us that I can assist along with others, and they have their treatment modalities and their processes too, but the more of us I can get on that frequency of love, the faster we can become a tidal wave, because water molecules, you may consider yourself small in comparison, a water molecule to the ocean. But the more water molecules that oscillate on the same frequency, the higher the wave. And I, with other light warriors out there that I've met and others I've not met, many more I've not met, I want us to help people get to that frequency of love so that we become a tidal wave of radical change that forever changes the face of this planet, because the planet is dying. The planet is dying. We are dying. So many of us are dying on the inside.
Right.
It's going to take the collective conscious on one page, and fear only divides. Love, that unites. That's the connective tissue between us all. We come from love. And so that's my passion, my purpose, my mission. And so the lit effect is my process and assisting people in that awakening.
I really love that, because until we can love ourselves, we can't love anybody else.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact, because I can't give you what I don't have.
Right.
No matter how you feel about it emotionally, it is 1000% truth. You love to the extent that you love yourself. No one is total love and no one is total hate. But to the extent that you love yourself, that's to the extent that you're going to love the other. So if you've had a parent, for example, that shamed you for being, quote unquote, too emotional, and you hadn't liberated that part from your shadows, guess what? If you have a baby girl, or if you have a sister, or if you have a partner, and they show you a part that appears to be vulnerable like that, you're going to shame their part too. And then you're going to create a narrative around it and say, well, look, I'm just, I don't need all those emotions. You're just too emotional for me. Now you find yourself repeating that same energy that first traumatized you and scared you out of your authentic self.
Mm.
That's the cost of this.
Yeah.
We're not isolated in the impact that we have on one another. So we got to wake up.
I did a Byron Katie conference before I knew who Byron Katie was. I went to an all-day seminar with her. Do you know who she is?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, in the way she teaches, you love what is, and also you judge your neighbor. You have a judge your neighbor worksheet, and you have to write down something that bothers you. And I couldn't even think of anything, but I went back to my first husband where he did this thing to me. He looked at me terribly because I was so skinny then, but I thought he didn't like the way I looked in my bathing suit. Anyway, by the end of the day, this was so interesting. She taught me what you just said, that I came away with, I expected him to love me no matter what I looked like, but I didn't love me.
Mm.
I expected him to fill in the holes in me. And now I know that's my job. It was never his.
Mm-hmm.
20 years I was mad at him and all of it was gone in a minute. I no longer held him responsible for what I couldn't even give myself. How could I expect it from him?
Mm-hmm. Facts. This has been my experience too since childhood, sister, that the way I talk now, it's very similar to the way I talked even as a child. And so people wouldn't understand what the hell I was saying, but I knew that I knew what I was saying was true.
Yeah.
I was writing letters to love before I even hit puberty. And I mean some real romantic, like not sexual, of course, but like truly deep, like a deep understanding for love. I studied that as a child for some reason, found it fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
But as I grew up, even now, as a therapist, I'll have these comments from my clients and I'll be like, I know I've been seeing you for like X amount of months. And I know you said this like 40 times, but I just read this book and I understand what you've been saying now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to just hear it a little differently and then it clicks.
That is my challenge, is the communication. I speak in wizardry, I speak in my understandings of life, because life is very fluid to me. The physical is a manifestation of spiritual truths. And so I look across the board. I'm not dogmatic, so I won't just speak from, let's say, a spiritual perspective or just a religious perspective or just a scientific perspective, but I've studied all of them. And so I can go, okay, well, in the Judeo-Christian church, it says you reap what you sow. Oh, okay, over here in Buddhism, it says karma. Oh, over here in physics, Sir Isaac Newton said for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. Third law of thermodynamics. That's the same principle. When I see that thread across any realm you look at, I call that a universal law, a universal principle. And then I begin to build on that, because that's the foundation. That's the foundation of the path back to self. So I just keep on collecting these truths and then try to find a way to communicate these truths to other people and then practice the skill, because there's no integration without the doing. And so that's why we have to know, but know deeper than what we already know, not take the surface level on anything, just like the Earth's crust. You got to go deep and deep. And if you go deep enough, no matter where you start at, we all reach the same center. It's about going deeper, in and out, That's why I say don't fall for the gimmicks about, oh, if you take my path and then this path will free you and this. And no. Somebody talking like that, you run the other way.
Yeah.
At best, all I can do is be an effective guide.
Right. Because the answer's already within me, right?
Exactly. The conundrum that I find myself in, and I must be patient, which is, how do I explain something that you already understand but choose not to see? These highly energized parts that's just not ready yet, terrified, they reject, they resist. And so that's where the patience is needed, because when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive.
Right. So true. So true. Oh, that's so good. I really love talking to you. I knew I would when I was on your podcast, and there was like no reason I asked you to be on mine, except that I just felt connected to you in some way. And I can see why. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
I enjoy the sharing, sister. This is my purpose. And so this fulfills me. So thank you.
Yeah.
This is a pleasure on my end.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Beneath Your Beautiful, hosted by Hara Allison. And thank you for your ratings and reviews. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Stay tuned.